Like any good equipment owner, I change my mower oil at least once a year, and that's because, well, the manual says so. It says once a year or every 100 hours. But this year, I'm going to do a full tune-up. In addition to taking you through the process, I also want to compare the price of this Kawasaki tune-up kit to buying all the items individually through Amazon and the parts store. We'll start with a cost comparison. I got this kit at my local Ag Central. The price before tax was $64.99. It comes with 2 quarts of oil, an oil filter, an air filter, 2 spark plugs, and a fuel filter. When not buying a kit, I usually buy most of these items on Amazon, so let's check the prices there. Oil filters, a pack of 4 comes out to about $9.25 each. Air filters comes out to about $6 each. Spark plugs, here's the model number, $8.81 for 2. Fuel filters, about $7.80 each. Then I get my oil at my local AutoZone for $10.99 a quart, and that total comes to $53.84. So to answer the question, I would have saved $11.15 buying all the individual items like I usually do, but for ease of purchasing, quickness, and getting the Kawasaki brands or manufacturer recommended items, I'll buy this kit again in the future. Now on to the installation. I got a few oil change videos on my page, so I'll go through this part quick. Let your engine run for 5 minutes, that gets the oil hot and it drains quicker. Find a container for your old oil. I like to use these bottles with lids. My old drain tube calls for a 5/8 and 11/16 wrench. Crack it open, then remove by hand. Now we can let it drain while we move on to the next steps. Next, we'll replace the air filter. Open up the air cleaner cover, loosen the hose clamp, pull the air cleaner hose back to give you room to remove the filter. This filter wasn't too bad, but best to change it per the manual's recommendations. However, I do it yearly. Be careful that no debris falls into the hose. I like to vacuum out any debris before I install the new filter. To install the new filter, pull back the hose again to give yourself room, slide the filter into the hose, and then for the final step, tighten down the hose clamp. Now let's check back on the draining process. Looks like we're done, so we can reinstall our drain plug, put the drain tube back in its place, throw away this funnel, and then secure the lid on our container. The next step is by far the messiest, changing the oil filter. There really is no way to prevent oil from spilling out, so I like to use a container to catch most of the oil and also put the oil filter into. Then I put some shop towels or something underneath to soak any up. In this case, I'm using some old socks. Also like to put a piece of cardboard or something on the ground to prevent getting any on the garage floor. Now it's time to change the oil filter. First, you want to apply a thin film of clean engine oil to the seal of the new oil filter. This will help get a good seal and prevent leaks in the future. To install, you screw on clockwise until the seal makes contact with the mounting surface. Then rotate another 3/4 of a turn and you're done. And now it's time to add the new oil. It's always good to reference the manual to see how much oil it holds so you can come up with a plan. Also make note in my manual of what type of oil, so if I'm buying it at the auto parts store, I can reference quickly. This kit came with the same weight oil I always buy, which is 20W50. The kit says the oil is a synthetic blend and contains zinc. I mentioned earlier to come up with a plan. That means to know how much oil you have versus how much it takes. And that tells you when to start checking the dipstick. I like to get it near the top of the full indicator, start the mower, let it run a bit, and then check it again and add as needed. Since we didn't pre-fill the oil filter, letting it run will get the oil into the filter, which will lower your levels. You don't have to be perfectly at the top. Anywhere between the 2 lines is good. Also make it a habit to check before and after the first mow after an oil change. And as you can tell here, we are 2 dots up, which is right in the middle and is perfect. Now we'll replace the spark plugs. These are NGK spark plugs, which usually come pre-gap, but it's always good to check. Check the engine's manual to confirm the recommended gap. In my case, it's between 0.028 and 0.03. I'll leave a link to this gap tool in the description as it's good to have around. And as you can see, both their plugs are gapped correctly from the factory. Here's the location of the spark plugs on this engine. To remove, I have some Harbor Freight spark plug sockets. The difference between a regular socket and a spark plug socket is that they are deeper and have a rubber piece inside which grabs the spark plug, making it easier to pull out. I'll leave a link to a much better set than I have in the description. I haven't changed the plugs since I bought the mower back in 2018, so they're a little stubborn. If yours is giving you trouble, you can use pliers to help. This is what it looks like inside the boot. It's always a good idea to inspect once you get it off to make sure everything looks okay. And And this is what a spark plug looks like after 6 years of use. Definitely needed to be changed. And one thing to be careful with when installing a spark plug is to make sure you do not cross thread. So it's best to do it by hand until you get it pretty much as tight as you can, and then use the ratchet to tighten it down the rest of the way. It's also a good idea to follow your manufacturer's recommendation for foot-pounds. Mine is 16 foot-pounds, but I'll just get it nice and snug. Alright, now that that's done, we can change the fuel filter, which is located here under the seat. The fuel lines fit snugly onto the fuel filter and held on by these two clips. You'll need a pair of pliers to disengage the clips and pull them away from the filter. Wiggle the fuel line back and forth and eventually it'll slide right off. There is fuel in the filter, so try to keep it from spilling out. I ended up placing an old towel underneath everything because I could tell getting this side off without spilling any gas would be a challenge. Alright, well that wasn't too bad. Now it's time to install the new filter. Make sure you make note of which way the air was facing on the one you took off and install this one in the same direction. Now that it's installed, we want to run the engine a bit so that the fuel pump pushes fuel through the filter. Then we can tell if we have any leaks. If no leaks, then we are done with our tune-up install. You can tell here we do have fuel moving through the filter. I'll jiggle it around a little bit so you can see. And I'm also going to feel around to make sure I don't feel any leaking gas. And I don't, so I think we're all good. It's been a week or so since the tune-up was installed, and I've mowed a couple yards. The simplicity is running much better and without any issues. I'll leave you with one of the many leaf mows I have to do on my yard in the fall. I'll leave that giant pile around the tree for now as I wait for dust masks to arrive from Amazon. The leaf dust does not help with the allergies, that's for sure. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.